Hi guys, and welcome back to the Overthinker's Guide to Love. I am so happy you're here. This week's episode is one that I've been wanting to record since I started this podcast. And it's probably the most personal one that I've put out there so far. Honestly, I think this is the episode I needed 8 months ago. I needed to hear this episode 8 months ago. But today we are talking about learning to be okay alone. I'm going to start with a question. If someone told you that for the next year, so from July to July or whenever you're listening to this, you couldn't date anyone. No talking stages, no situationships, no flirting, no distractions, just you. How would you feel? Would you feel relieved? Or would that honestly terrify you? I think a lot of us would panic, not because we necessarily want a relationship, but because being alone can feel really uncomfortable, especially in your 20s. It feels like everyone around you is finding their person. People are posting anniversaries, engagements, weddings, moving in together, and you're sitting there wondering if you're somehow behind in life. Social media makes it seem like being single is a waiting room. Like life doesn't really start until you find someone. But that isn't true. Your 20s are one of the most important times to be alone. Not because you shouldn't want love. I absolutely believe in love. I hope one day I find my person. But before you spend forever learning someone else, you should spend time learning about yourself. Because who you are in your 20, when you are 20, is going to be different from who you'll be at 25. Your values change, your priorities change, your friendships change, your goals change. And if you're constantly looking for someone else to complete you, you never really get the chance to discover who you are on your own. I think that's something people don't talk about enough. Being alone isn't a punishment, it's an opportunity. It's a season where you figure out what makes you happy without someone else's opinion. What kind of life you actually want, what kind of people deserve a place in your life, and what kind of love you're no longer willing to settle for. I also think there's a huge difference between being alone and feeling lonely. You can be in a relationship and still feel lonely. 100%. You can have a huge friend group and still feel lonely. You can be surrounded by people every single day and still feel like no one truly knows you. Loneliness isn't always about who's around you. Sometimes it's about how disconnected you feel from yourself. And I think that's where I was 8 months ago. I spent so much time pouring into other people that I never really learned how to pour into myself. I always wanted to be around people because I thought if I stayed busy enough, I would never have to sit with my own thoughts. But eventually, life forced me to. And looking back now, I'm actually really grateful it did. Because the last 8 months have taught me more about myself than the previous years combined. So before I get into what I learned, I want to tell you the story that changed everything for me. Looking back now, I think everything started around September or October. I remember feeling really, really lonely. And the weird part was I was surrounded by friends. I had friends, I was with someone, I was constantly doing something. I was in school, going to football games. So I couldn't understand why I felt so empty. I remember thinking, how can I feel this alone when I'm literally surrounded by people all the time? And at the time, I thought something had to be wrong with me. Then November came. I lost my best friend. That friendship ending hurt me more than I ever expected it to. It came out of nowhere. And before I really even had time to process that friendship ending and that relationship ending, December came. And the guy that I had been with for about a year, and we ended things. And honestly, that was my rock bottom. So I lost my best friend. I lost the guy I was talking to. All within, I don't know, a month. I would come home from work, close my bedroom door, and just cry. Almost every day. Like, every day. I hated coming home because that's when it really hits. There was nobody waiting for me. Nobody's a text. Nobody to tell me about their day. It was just silence. And I hated it. So I started avoiding it. Instead of going home after work, I'll find an excuse to stay out. I'll run errands I didn't even need to run. I'll walk around Target. I'll grab a coffee. I'll literally do anything I could so I didn't have to sit in my apartment by myself because being alone felt unbearable. But eventually, I realized I couldn't keep running from it. No matter how busy I stayed, eventually I still had to go home. Eventually, it was still just me. And I think that's when something started to change. I realized I had two choices. I could keep waiting for someone else to make me feel less lonely, or I could learn how to enjoy my own company. Healing definitely wasn't overnight, and it definitely wasn't linear. There were days where I felt like I had finally moved on from everything, and then the next day I'd be crying over something I thought I was already past. Healing is messy, it's confusing. Some days you feel amazing. Other days you feel like you're starting all over again. That's normal. But little by little, I started doing things by myself. I started taking myself on dates. I'll go to the movies alone. I go to dinner by myself. I'll take myself on walks. I started journaling. And instead of trying to fill every quiet moment with another person, I started filling those moments with things that actually brought me peace. At first, it felt awkward. I remember thinking everyone was looking at me because I was sitting alone at a restaurant. Now, I don't even think twice about it. Like, I'm going out by myself all the time, and I love it. And I enjoy it. And I think that's one of the biggest blessings these past 8 months have given me. I learned that it's okay to be alone. Being alone doesn't mean you're unloved. It doesn't mean you're behind. It doesn't mean nobody cares about you. Sometimes it just means you're in a season that's teaching you something. Looking back now, I honestly needed this season because over the last 8 months, I've learned so much about myself. I learned that I get overwhelmed more easily than I realized. I learned what actually brings me peace. I learned what kind of people I want in my life. I learned how to comfort myself instead of expecting someone else to do it for me. And most importantly, I learned to love myself. Not because someone else finally chose me, but because I finally chose myself. And I truly believe if I hadn't gone through this season, I wouldn't be the person I am today. I think one of the biggest things this season has taught me is that your 20s are meant to be a time where you discover who you are. I know that sounds cliche, but it's true. I think so many of us spend our 20s chasing relationships because we're scared of being alone. We're constantly wondering, when am I going to meet my person? Why is everyone else finding love before me? Am I falling behind? But what if the season isn't about finding your person? What if it's about finding yourself? Because here's the thing. When you're constantly talking to someone, dating someone, or chasing someone's attention, you don't leave yourself much room to grow. You start making decisions based on another person. You start asking yourself what they want, what they like, what they need, instead of asking yourself, what do I want? What kind of life do I want to build? What actually makes me happy? I don't think I would have learned any of that if I hadn't been forced to spend time alone. And honestly, I'm grateful for it because it's the first time in a long time I know who I am. I know what I value. I know what brings me peace. I know what I deserve. One of the biggest lessons I've learned is that attention isn't the same thing as love. Just because someone texts you all day doesn't mean they love you. Just because someone compliments you doesn't mean they're your person. Just because someone wants you doesn't mean they're capable of loving you the way you deserve. I used to confuse lust for love. I think a lot of us do. When someone gives us attention, we immediately start imagining what our future could look like. We build this entire story in our heads, but attention fades, lust fades, looks change. Real love doesn't. Real love is consistency. It's choosing each other over and over again. It's peace. It's safety. It's showing up even on the ordinary days. And I don't think I would have understood the difference if I hadn't spent these last several months by myself. Because once I learned to enjoy my own company, I stopped settling for people who only enjoyed me when it was convenient. I stopped chasing people who weren't chasing me. I stopped accepting the bare minimum just because I didn't want to be alone. Because here's the truth. When you're scared of being alone, you'll accept almost anything just to avoid that feeling. You'll ignore the red flags. You'll make excuses. You'll convince yourself that almost is enough. But once you realize you can create a life that you genuinely love by yourself, everything changes. You stop looking for someone to complete you. You start looking for someone who complements the life you've already built. I think that's the biggest shift I've experienced. I don't feel like I need someone anymore. I hope I find love one day? Absolutely. Of course. I want a family. I want a husband. I want babies running around. I'm a hopeless romantic. I can't wait to meet my husband someday. But I'm not in a rush anymore. Because I've realized that this season isn't something I need to escape. It's something I get to experience. And honestly, it's become one of the greatest blessings in my life. Before we end this episode, I want to talk to the person who's listening right now and feels lonely. Maybe your relationship just ended. Maybe your friendships have changed. Maybe you moved to a new city. Maybe everyone around you seems to have their life figured out and you're wondering why you still feel so lost. I want you to know something. You are not behind. Life isn't a race. There isn't a timeline that says you have to meet your forever person by 25, get married by 28, and have everything figured out by 30. Everyone's story looks different. And honestly, I'm really glad mine didn't happen the way that I thought it would. Because if it had, I never would have become this version of myself. I would have kept relying on other people to make me happy. I would have kept looking for validation instead of confidence. I would have kept confusing attention with love. And I would have missed out on getting to know the person I'll spend every single day with for the rest of my life. Me. I think one of the biggest mindset shifts I've had is realizing that being alone isn't something to survive. It's something to embrace. This season gave me the opportunity to become someone I'm genuinely proud of. It taught me independence. It taught me confidence. It taught me that I can create a really beautiful life all by myself. And that's a really empowering feeling. Now, if someone comes into my life, I don't need them to complete me. I want them to add to the life I've already built. That's a huge difference. I want someone who brings me peace, someone who chooses me every single day, someone who makes my life better, not busier, because I've worked really hard to protect my peace. And I'm not really willing to lose it just because I'm afraid of being alone. So if you're listening to this and you're in your lonely season, I want to challenge you. Take yourself on a date this week by yourself. Go get coffee. Go to the movies. The new Spider-Man movie is coming out. I'm seeing it tonight. Go sit in the park. Take yourself out to dinner. Go on a walk without your phone for a little while. Journal. I love journaling. Read a book. Do something that reminds you that your own company is enough. I know it feels uncomfortable at first. Trust me. I've been there. But one day you'll realize you're not checking your phone every 5 minutes anymore. You're not waiting for someone to text you. You're not rearranging your entire day hoping someone asks to see you. You're just living. And that's a really beautiful feeling. If I could go back and hug the version of me that was crying every night in December and in January, and a little bit in February, maybe some in March and April, I'll tell her this. You're going to be okay. Actually, you're going to be better than okay. You're going to laugh again. You're going to smile again. You're going to stop questioning your worth. You're going to stop begging for people to stay. You're going to stop settling. You're going to fall in love with your own life. And one day, when the right person comes along, they won't be filling a void. They'll simply be joining a life you've already learned to love. I truly believe everyone deserves a season like this. Not because it's easy, but because it changes you. It teaches you that your worth has never depended on how many people are around you. It has never depended on whether you're in a relationship. It has never depended on whether someone chooses you. Because at the end of the day, the most important person who will ever choose you is you. Thank you guys so much for listening to another episode of the Overthinker's Guide to Love. If this episode resonated with you, I love if you share it with someone who might need to hear it. As always, thank you for being here. I'll talk to you guys next Sunday. Until then, be curious with your mind and gentle with your heart.